I'm going to talk a little bit about Mechanisburg here. I'm not going to do a playthrough review, not even a real intro. It's what I call a quick fail. Okay. One of my viewers sent me this. I'm not sure whether he's trying to booby trap me and cause me a complete meltdown, or if this is just some kind of idea of, wow, he really wants to see me curse the shit out of learning a game. But this is essentially the antithesis of what I'd call a good game design. All right, let's take a look. And there might be an interesting game here. I've got no question that there's no way that I'm in a position to evaluate that. But the amount of effort that would be required to learn how to play this game, to correlate all the different facets that are going on in it, it seems to me like the kind of effort that's involved in trying to play a world at war. Except that instead of putting it in the rule books, it's put into, well, essentially into a set of player aids, which are not actually player aids, but are just crap that's written into the game rules. Basically a glossary of what all these fucking icons do. Now you have to remember, I'm a person who has not been able to handle, I'm trying to find it, Race for the Galaxy, which I have kicking around somewhere here. I played it once with my wife and I'm like, this just isn't worth the effort, right? So now I'm faced with this. This is that taken on at least a squaring factor, okay? All right. So what's wrong here? Well, essentially what happens is each of these locations on the board is going to have some little icons which indicate what kind of feeds into them and what they can work with. And then each player has certain characters and certain modifier, little buildings and shit like that they can sort of combine to get themselves a force power in there. Now, in addition to that, they have sort of a bidding capability with these cards, which is pretty simple. And the actual mechanism to this is you're going to be placing your little pawns on different places, like a worker placement type game. And yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of worker placement, right? So let's make worker placement as fucking unpleasant as possible for me, right? All right. But anyway, you have essentially a worker placement type situation where you've just got so many different things that you have to try to mesh together, which would be fine if those things were obviously apparent. But instead they work on a complicated iconography which requires two pages of this to just identify most, but not all, of the icons. Many of them you have to flip through the rules, and no matter what's here, oh, mini sub, yeah, okay, so what? And then I have to look up to see what effect that has if it's on a character, what effect it has on a building, what effect it has if it's printed over here in the specific location that it's listed in, and how to make sense out of it all, which isn't also always apparent within the game. As far as I'm concerned, what I see here is, at the heart, a Euro that I'm not going to enjoy no matter what, right? I mean, I'm going to be trying to do worker placement type stuff and optimizing my position, except somebody's thrown this fucking huge barrier in the way of, yeah, I don't know what anything does. So what the game will come down to is if I play it, I'd be playing it almost randomly, or looking up every single fucking thing before I can make a single move. And that's what I tried to do here, and then I just decided, oh, there's a threat that's probably worth more than anything else. I'll place there. There's only a certain number of slots here in each thing, so the fact that he moved in there probably means he's more or less the only person who can solve that problem, because it's a hard threat. At least, that's the way I'm evaluating it right now. On top of that, what I haven't mentioned is apparently, although it's not absolutely clear from the rules, these things are all also available to be purchased. They're things that you can work towards that have a high cost that you're able to, obtain, and then you pay. So they have a high cost in like research and major projects and stuff like that, and then you have to pay a big pile of money, and you get them, and they have a big payoff to them. But then it's this whole nother pile of things that you have to assess the valuation of. And to make it even more interesting, came with one of the expansions as well. This might be appealing to people who are looking for that, I want to be constantly learning the game because it's so complex in its interactions, not some kind of emergent complexity, but some kind of complexity just based on all these different moving parts and things that you have to fit together. I want to constantly be learning it, and I want to buy a single game that, will challenge me for years perhaps, because I'll never fucking be able to figure it out because the interactions are too complicated, right? Which is the exact opposite of what I want, And some people talk about, what a great narrative this has and everything. Well, it has bullshit for a narrative for me, because what I'm doing is I'm putting pieces on a board, right? And I'm trying to optimize my cards and optimize points. And that's what every game of it's going to be about. It's never going to be a game for me, which is about, I'm going to send some guys over here to do this. It's just not going to feel that way to me. What does feel that way to me is Freedom in the Galaxy, where, you actually, the expenditures, the actions that you're taking to get your people where you want them to be, to get them to do what you want them to do, whatever, all of that kind of stuff is handled as part of the game, not as some sort of, I got a card, that means I can own this guy if I pay his wages or whatever. So, my initial instinct when I was offered this was refuse it because it looks like a Euro. And I was assured, no, it's really thematic. It's not a Euro, really, or it's got Euro-ish aspects, but it's not. It doesn't play like one. It doesn't feel like one. Yeah, well, bullshit. I can look at this and I can say, this is just a nightmare to me. And, I'm sorry. I have no intention of going any further with this. I've tried setting it up to just kind of get a feel for what's going on, because the actual rules, although they're not written well and they're hard to decipher, aren't very difficult. What's difficult is all of the information that you have to assess out of all these pages. And so you have to know all the zones and what their special rules are. And there's 10 of them, and they each operate under different rules. And they each allow you to do different things in them, which is kind of based upon these symbols here, for the most part. Although there are things that I don't think are necessarily represented in the iconography, so you're going to constantly have to look into here until you absolutely memorize all of those. And then there's victory events, which can come up during the game, which are ways of, on the last couple turns of the game, which are ways of changing what the victory conditions are. That's a cool element, there's no question, and I don't mind that in and of itself. And then after we get to there, we go to here, yeah. Okay, so now each of these different little symbols here like this is a hacking attempt. It's got its own set of rules kind of baked into what that icon means, which tells you what happens when you do that. And then here are all the abilities on the different characters. So for example, if you're a lawyer and you have him present at the Palace of Justice, where there's a little lawyer symbol, you get to do something. But some of these are not that kind of thing. So for example, Guts, and you just have to kind of remember this, is going to add to your combat ability. Okay? So they're not, the icons that are, I don't know what a lock is. And again, when a security officer, so he gets certain values in certain operations. So if there's an assassination going on, he can help prevent it. Can he do anything else? There's a couple of events that he's allowed to go to. Events are certain things that come up, little green cards that come up out of this big pile. You've got these random things here like this, mutant. So each character is a kind of thing. Like this is a cyborg. Well, we've also got mutants, and mutants give a victory point bonus if you own a particular project, and you just, this is one of the research projects, and you just get victory points based on that, and you have to kind of build what really, even on this opening tableau, looks like hundreds of different pieces of information, and assess that and understand what's going to happen. Now, with significant play of the game, if you can get over that first hurdle of, well, I have no fucking idea of what to do at all, you might start to build experience. But I don't feel like I can even make a valid decision anymore beyond this first one. And again, I was going to give this the full treatment, but fuck that. I don't have time for this shit. Okay, each company in the game has a special ability, which is not listed anywhere else. It would be useful if it was on your company card or something like that. Nah, it's not. It's only here in the rulebook. Just like these other things, it's only in the rulebook. Now, there are player aids that obviously people have put out because, gamers who think a game is cool will put out pieces for it and make it actually almost work in the hopes of getting other people to do it. But essentially what you have is a set of 10 or 15 of these sheets that every player is going to have. Basically, every player has to have their own reference sheet of all the rules because they couldn't put the rules on the cards. And there are reasons for that. It's just, it's nightmarish. Now, you could say the same thing about some collectible card games, that they have this kind of baked in complexity to them. And certainly even Magic the Gathering managed to over time, where they stopped putting the information on the cards as much and started using icons for it. And that's really where the game fell to shit for me. Each threat has its own special rules on it. You have to look it up in order to understand what the icons mean. Each of the major projects that are available has its own special rule. Couldn't be printed on the card. Cards are more expensive to print than rule books. This is a bilingual game. You couldn't print the cards in 2 different languages, of course, because, you would have to pay printing costs for that. Although with things like Game Crafter, I don't see where that's an issue anymore. So the translation is also not very good. One of the things that's available online is a better English translation. And I just find myself basically flipping through this, trying to find the information that should be available and displayed on the board. As far as I'm concerned, this is totally worthless to me. I can't do it. Like I said, Race for the Galaxy was too much for me. This is that in hyperspace, and sorry folks, not gonna happen.